Hey guys, I'm Ted, here to give you another fast fact. And for today's fast fact, we're going to look at the 1863 New York draft riot. Now, the North, has stated earlier in our lecture series, had just as racist of an attitude towards African Americans has the Confederate States, had the Slavocrats. Uh, they simply did not agree with the practice of owning humans, and the expansion of that practice. Though that was the only main difference. Um, they expected the war to be relatively bloodless and over quickly. Disillusionment over the reality of the war led to a shortage of recruitment. In response to this, the War Department began to authorize the recruitment of black troops, in a move uh, out of the Confederates' place, and also in a move right out of the Confederate States playbook. They also began to institute a national draft. Now, the institution of a national draft, outraged Northerners. Those in the United States, they were outraged by this. Um, and they were really outraged by the fact that there was a provision that if a draftee came up with $300, more than half of a working man's yearly wage, that man he could be deferred from service. This was commutation. You can buy your way out of service. They were upset. They were incensed by the fact that rich men could buy their way out of the war, but they were still being obliged to fight for more than just keeping the nation as a whole. This is an allusion to the implementation of emancipation, how the war aimed following the Emancipation Proclamations. Now, in New York City, which was a Copperhead Democrat bastion, there was strong support from the working class and immigrant population. They began to a number of factors began to coalesce together. One, feared that emancipation will lead to a flood of African Americans from the former slave states, who would drive wages down as they competed with them for the same unskilled jobs. The situation exploded when the names of draftees were read out loud in July of 1863. Rioters stormed the draft office, burning it to the ground, and then they began to attack buildings associated with either President Lincoln or the 19th century Republican Party. The city's undermanned metropolitan police force was able to keep the rioters out of wealthier neighborhoods, but not to disperse or even limit the destruction caused by the mobs. After ransacking most of the city, the mob turned on the free black community of New York, lynching and beating African Americans that they encountered. They eventually burnt the Colored Orphan Asylum, and literally just raised all sorts of hell. Lincoln rushed the armies fresh from the Battle of Gettysburg to quell the rioting, which they did. The rioters shot down dozens of the soldiers shot down dozens of rioters and arrested thousands. When it was all said and done, more than 100 people lay dead. The New York City draft riots, or should I say the New York City 1863 race riot, remains one of the worst incidents in United States history. It remains one of the worst riots in United States history. And that concludes our fast fact on this riot. As always, hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you guys thought about this fast fact. It's always interesting when people find out that that one of the worst riot of the Civil War occurred in New York City over the draft, and that it quickly became a race riot. A lot of people are really fascinated by that. But as always, hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know in particular what you guys thought about this fast fact. And as always, I'm Ted, and I'll see you guys next time for another fast fact.